Just grinding out carbides on these. Teeth on my stump grinder. Look at this tooth right here. See that? Now that carbide got grinded to the same degree as the steel. The carbide's supposed to stick out a little, but it has an angle for a reason, okay? They tell you not to do the flat, or they tell you to do the flat and not around. I go around the outside and I do the flat. I don't see the problem with having a nice sharp corner. It's not going to stay sharp long, but it's not supposed to be round, and you don't want it to have a knuckle. You want it to be straight like this, no curve. Because if it has a curve like that, what you're doing is you're cutting edges here, and this is what's rubbing on the wood, which is just creating heat and friction, and it'll cut whatever you bite past that. But let's say you're supposed to be getting 1/8 of an inch a bite. Well, if you're in 1/8 of an inch, now you're only getting a 1/16 of an inch a bite, or even less than that, because that knuckle is reducing your cut depth basically, and you have to go even deeper to get a bite. It's not good creating friction on a system that relies on everything to be fine-tuned to work properly. So I have a green wheel here. This thing is really cool. It puts out tons and tons of this dust. It's silicon carbide, I guess, or something. Whatever it is, it works on carbide. I tried using this, which is what the local place, that the rental place uses to sharpen theirs, and for some reason I wasn't taking enough stock off my carbides to feel like it was worth the time, so I decided to hook up the green wheel. This here's the holder that the insert goes into. Goes together like that, and then as it's turning, this whole shank of this steel is being turned, you know, essentially by these two bolts bracing it as it rotates. And so when it's held, I don't know if you can see this, but this shank actually protrudes just a little bit out. That part is what's contacting the cutter wheel. That part right there, this part is just a gap. So there's an open air gap there, which is kind of an interesting way to do things, but you want to crush that shank, and that's why it's done this way. I'm having trouble getting my cutters to go back into the holders, so I'm grinding off just the very butt end, the back end of them, with this awesome new grinder I got. Let me show you this thing. I was at my local hardware store and I said, "How long has this been here?" He said, "About 15 years. And that handle's pretty dangerous, it just keeps going. But if you're grinding something, it'll stop that wheel pretty fast. It's got these little oiler holes right here for oil. You open them up and put oil in with the little oiler can. See, I got one of these classic oiler cans. I use trans fluid, but that's what you were traditionally going to use in something like this. Modern stuff now is all grease, I think. But this here is oil. This is how I set up my my carbides to be put back together. So I only take out one pair at a time. This set has a straight and an angle to it. So that straight, or the angle one, always goes to the outer side when you have a straight with it. So since I'm cutting down, the threads are going to be on my right while I'm working on the machine here. So I'll put the cutter so that it's cutting towards me, and this bottom right here essentially determines where that's supposed to be. So I'll stand it up like that, and then I'll put this cutter in, cutting the same direction towards me, okay? And then I have these cutters set. Now I already took these bolts to the wire wheel to get them clean, and I sprayed WD-40 on them. I didn't see any anti-seize on these when I took them off. So I'm using oil. This is a 1/2 inch Allen. Seems like a socket Allen would be more useful, but this is what I'm using and I have a pipe to go to it. I'm now going to take WD-40 and I'm going to spray this area. I don't want to put this on top of any dirt. Then I'll take this little disc of stone and I'll just kind of give that a smoothness to it. This is an abrasive. And then wipe that. I have my bolts on the left here, on my left, and I just insert them like this. And that one will hold itself, so then I just take the other one and I push it in just enough to get these bolt heads to stick out. And they'll start threading. Take a pry bar, and I'll stick it through this triangular hole right here. And then it's got to go into the opposite hole, which is that one, okay, and go down. And then I just use a piece of pipe. This is why a socket Allen would be better, because you could ratchet that. But this is kind of buried in here, but underneath this shroud, but all I'm doing is tightening these. You're wondering, what's the torque spec? Well, I don't know. I bet you it's in the manual too. But I know I took these off and they weren't all even the same tightness. Some were loose, some were tight. It was sad, really. It was scary that I ran it that way from Bobcat. Crazy. So I'm just making them tight. This is a fine thread. Doesn't need to be super duper tight. I'm making it pretty tight. I'm going until it goes tick tick, which means friction is high. You know, it's got lubricant on it. It's got WD-40. showering the camera with dust, plus the battery's about to die, but it's cutting a lot better now. It's not bogging down. It still goes the same speed, but instead of getting choked up on tough cuts, it just plows through. So yeah, it was worth sharpening, and I hope that helped you guys. Good luck out there.